Hi guys, that's Giampaolo Russo speaking for a new edition of our PPC World News live event. Here with us we have a very welcome guest, Brad Geddes. Hi Brad.
Hey, how you doing today?
Fine, fine, thanks, everything. I'm really happy to have him because he's one of the first speakers, first international speakers to believe in ADworld Experience more than 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. But anyway, don't miss any time. So the first news we are going to comment is about LinkedIn launching video ads. The news is going has been going for a while. The test has been on for a while. What do you think about this move?
Love it. We're a B2B company, obviously, and we started using huge amounts of video, and maybe 3 years ago, and I was surprised how well video had really gotten to be in the B2B environment. So this seems like a natural fit to me that LinkedIn would just go ahead and add video to their platforms too. I'm surprised they haven't done it earlier.
Perfect. I totally agree. I'm not as really an expert in LinkedIn ads, but I totally trust you. The second news, let's refresh it. Okay. By Andrew Harder, Anabi Marketing, is just recalling some strategies for video campaigns in YouTube. Is nothing really new in this post, but is a very nice recap. What would you suggest to our readers about video campaigns on behalf of your experience?
So video campaigns on YouTube drive huge amounts of awareness, obviously. And we're still testing the new CTA overlays from the ad extension to see how much it drives converting traffic. Because what we often see is that when someone interacts with our YouTube video, their conversion rates are higher when they visit us through a different source, or their retention rates are higher. And so if they're a current subscriber and they spend time on our YouTube channel, we see that they spend many more months with us. So video it's great in a lot of things, but it's rarely capturing a direct response audience outside of some things like diet and so forth. But in most campaigns that aren't direct response, it's not going to be direct response, but it often has a lot of other positive values that go along with it.
Perfect, perfect. Just one thing I'm signaling here on this post. There is also a list of exclusion, a kids channel exclusion list. I think it was compiled by Joe Martinez, if I'm not wrong, and it's interesting. Just was wanted to point it out. Okay, a new post by Joe Martinez himself. How to find new placements in display network. It's a nice recap of some fine-tuning opportunities in the display network. What do you think about?
So this was almost identical to an article I wrote about 15 years ago. So I agree completely, right? Go look at your analytics. Google's, the problem is in the new interface, they did not bring the display planner over, which is just really annoying. And so use your Google Analytics data to find your best sites you're getting conversions from. Go take a look at that. Set them up as your placement targets, check out how good the traffic is. It's a very good practice to follow. It's not really controversial, but a lot of people are doing this for a
decade. Yeah, it's a very new idea. Okay. Okay, let's move. Next news, it's about the Google Manufacturers Center, which actually I've never seen because here in Italy we still don't have it. what you can say about it? I'm not.
I have never seen this either, right?
Perfect.
So, like Google Merchant Center, sure, I know. Manufacturer Center, I am not completely positive what that product is. It sounds like it's maybe the people who own the products and they can distribute stuff to their merchants. But I'm guessing. I actually have no clue what that product is. I have to go look at this later.
It seems
I don't do a lot of shopping though, so
yeah.
that's I'm much more lead gen focused is my favorite.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of enhanced Google Shopping Center. I think it's a sort of merchant center. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it seems nice. Next news. Pauline Jakub and four interesting settings in display campaigns. Even here, nothing really completely new on the field, but it's interesting how she suggests to check for optimized settings in display campaigns. It's something I totally agree with her because it's actually what I'm checking in my campaigns. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so there's two specifically I think that should be addressed, right? Automatic targeting being one. So by default, Google starts this as conservative, which means they expand your targeting from what you started with before you even know how your benchmark. So I always like to turn it off so I can get a true benchmark of my targeting, not theirs. And then I often end up using it. I sometimes even use aggressive targeting, but only when I can compare it to a true benchmark that doesn't include anything. So I think it's a really good advice to start with, but you may play with stuff after that.
Yeah.
The other one, right, is somewhat device in category exclusion things. So category exclusions everyone should be using. Yeah. Google sunsetted AdSense from mobileapps.com last year, really under the radar. And so everyone who has, not really paid attention to changes and they're on mobile is probably getting a lot of horrible app traffic. And so understanding how to actually exclude apps these days is really important to understand.
Yeah, I completely agree with you and with Pauline. Okay, move to the other news. Amazon is pushing badly on PPC, and they are recovering they were when I first saw their interface, it was like a jump in the past, but they are burning targets now, and I think they are going to push even harder. What do you think about it?
Oh, I agree, right? So Amazon launched with some real basic targeting, real basic initial stuff. They've added some targeting layers. I expect, and obviously, as they're a completely structured site, right? They're all structured content site. It's easy for them to add targeting, and so this one makes sense. I think we'll see even more targeting things come up in the future. I expect to see almost a remarketing across Amazon for your own products and turning some of their secondary inventory into a display network of sorts within Amazon's site. So I think we're going to see even more and more change from Amazon multiple times this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, a new news by Joe Martinez himself. So he has a couple of news. Call extensions. He is explaining the new extension, call to action extension. Sorry, the new extension which has to. It's the new call to action for video campaigns because overlays has been sunsetted, and now I realized looking at I've done a video campaign today myself and didn't have this new extension. Now I realized, rereading this post, I realized why, because I didn't choose the lead objective, and I thought it was because in Italy, so we have some lag here with the news, and so I thought it wasn't the right yet, but it wasn't that the reason. What do you think about this new? I think it's something due to systematic to make more systematic the interface, because the was a really a difficult a different thing, the call to action and all of this the extension.
Yeah. So Google is starting to. This is a higher level thing, right? So what we've seen from Google in the past 6 months to 12 months is release features that are only available if you're willing to use other features of Google, right? So you can't use a call to action extension on YouTube unless you're doing CPA bidding. So you can't do CPC bidding with it. This is not the first time they've essentially said, here's this cool new thing to use, because remember, they sunsetted overlays, right? So you got to use the new one. But you can only use it if you're willing to give us control over X. And this has been a real change. I'm trying to remember the one that was just terrible earlier this year. Oh, if you use CPA bidding, you can no longer use rotate your ads. Google ignores the setting if you use CPA bidding, right? They no longer look at your ad rotation settings. And they're starting to kind of take over accounts in subtle ways, where you say, I want to use this, but then I've got to give up this. And I want to use this, but then I've got to give up that. And I think Google is really kind of making some decisions on behalf of advertisers of what they should be doing when the advertiser often knows better. And this has kind of been a problem that we're just sort of really seeing from Google, mostly in the last 6 to 12 months, but I think we're going to see some more of this, especially this year too.
Yeah.
So great post by Joe. If you want to use the the call to action extension on YouTube, which you should, you got to use CPA bidding, which you might not want to, but you don't have a choice. Nice.
Yeah, totally agree with this too. I didn't look at it under this point of view, but you are completely right. Let's pass to another interesting news piece of news. Bing Ads, with the new agreement, Microsoft and Verizon, Bing Ads will reach, they say, 10-15% more audience in with their search ads, and I think it's a good thing. Competition always is for the better in our market. What do you think?
From my understanding, this means Yahoo Gemini is finally being retired, and then inventory completely given back to Microsoft, who had it initially. So this is probably my favorite announcement of the day. we get rid of, Gemini had such a horrible API. It was so hard to work with. We've got Microsoft for, Microsoft, Yahoo, AOL, all the OAuth stuff that Verizon owns, which is a terrible name, but whatever, and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is not fully baked in there, right? But that goes one side. And then you've got Google, obviously, on search and the huge display network. This is great. This is a good move for Microsoft. Competition for Google is great. The more Microsoft can do, the better off all of us are. So I'm happy with this. This is great for Microsoft.
Yeah, and I think if they succeed in integrate in a more in a much deeper level LinkedIn ads in Microsoft in Bing Ads, they will be for the first time ahead of Google for at least B2B campaigns. I think they should seriously work on this, because that could be a very good move on their side.
Yep.
Okay, the last news from Andrea Taylor. again, I'm not a LinkedIn ads specialist, but group targeting, I've never, no, I think I've used a couple of times, but I think it's a useful suggestion just to test it.
Yeah, I love group targeting in LinkedIn. It's one of my favorites. If you're targeting smaller groups, so you'll see groups of like that have 1 million people. They're just useless to target. They're not specific enough. But there's a lot of 1,000 to 5,000 people groups that are fairly specific. Takes a little more work to find them, but again, in the paid search world, you do a little more work, you get better targeted ads and better results. So it's a great post from Andrew. Just, hey, what is this, and to go after it, because this was we're a B2B company, right? And when we first started doing a lot of LinkedIn targeting, I found this much more useful than the more common target by job titles. In paid search, job titles were so ridiculous for a while that some people were ninjas, others were optimization, others were team leads, and job titles were so inconsistently applied that targeting by job titles is really, really difficult to do for specific and paid search, where groups is saying, hey, here's an interest I have. So it's like interest targeting. You're just using groups as a proxy to reach it.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, that's all for this edition. Thank you, Brad, for being with us, and see you in Bologna on April 4 and 5. Ciao.
I will look forward to it.
Ciao.
Ciao. Enjoy.